Welcome to another episode of Unconditioned Mind. Unconditioned Mind is a project of Awakened Global, a movement that seeks to contribute towards gender and racial inequality. I have an exciting guest today, Peter Moyo, who's going to be talking about entrepreneurship and personal development. We've come a long way. He's an old friend of mine, so I know that he's going to share his journey with us. Maybe, Peter, you can start by introducing yourself. Just tell us who you are, where you are, what are you doing now?
Well, it's always easy to start off with what you've done. Maybe I also say it's easy to talk about where you are. Firstly, what do I want to be known for? I'm married to my wife of 32 years.
Wow.
I'm a father of 3 lovely children, 2 young women, and a young man, 2 daughters and a son. And I'm now also a grandfather. A few years ago, I was actually blessed to add another daughter into my family through my daughter-in-law. And we've almost always lived with a young niece of ours whom we adopted at a young age. I'm also blessed that at age 62, both my parents are still alive. What am I doing now? I'm working on a venture with a friend to build a digital financial advisory platform. It's actually been a very exciting business. That's actually why I say to you, I can only do these meetings after 9, because every morning between 7 and 9, I'm working on that. In the past, I've been Group CEO of All Mutual, NMT, Alexander Forbes, among others. I've been Chairman of Vodacom, and I've served on some listed company boards and on state-owned enterprises and not-for-profit companies. And by training, I'm a chartered accountant. So that's kind of who I am and what I've done.
Take us back, Peter. You qualify as a chartered accountant. You are a young person. It's apartheid South Africa. What was that like?
Well, you might actually remember that when we met through a BASA, there were less than, I think, 60-50 black chartered accountants. And black, I mean,
African.
It actually was not easy. So fast forward, I became the first black African partner at Ernst & Young.
How old were you then?
I was, they announced that I was going to be a partner just after I turned 31.
Wow.
And yeah, just after I turned 31, because at 32, when I turned 32, I was already a partner. One of the first things I actually remember, I was moving from the Mafeking office to the Johannesburg office. I remember I checked who amongst the black people were writing the board exams. And I remember talking to Ben Godisang and Moketse Sibotsa. Mm-hmm. And firstly, I was clear in my mind that I was going to be a role model to these people. But what I actually found fascinating, and this was to help me think about the future, both of them, when I called them to say, good luck, you're writing the board exam, both of them actually say to me, don't worry, it's on hand, and that kind of thing. I was very encouraged that with young black African South Africans that had that confidence. And when the board results came out, both of them had actually passed, yes.
Wow.
And that was actually to give me confidence that our people can actually do it, and you can surround yourself with black people. But one other thing that I remember vividly, that again was to shape what I was going to do in that time. There was a young lady, Pumla Mzizi, in the office. A lot of times she was actually sitting, not going to clients. And she knocked on my door one day and said, Mr. Moyo, I hope your being here is going to change our future. And so those things actually, they rang true in my mind to say, there are a few of us. It is our duty to make sure that there are many of us. These youngsters look to you. You started realizing at a very young age that you are blessed to be in this position. It's not just about you. It's just about all the other Black people. If I could not carry Black people at the time at Ernst & Young, nobody else was going to carry them.
Yes.
I found myself in very difficult positions at times when we had disciplinary inquiries on Black people, or even some people that were not even professional. I had to stand on their side.
Yes.
I got dragged because at the end of the day, they'll actually say, I've got these charges. I need. So you are a partner in this firm. You are essentially standing against yourself when you are representing these people. So, but you had to be clear that you had a duty to protect the firm, but you also had a duty to bring up these people because they looked up to you. If you drop them, it was not easy, but it was actually an exciting challenge, and that actually shaped, interestingly, a lot of what I was to do going into the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that, I mean, those early chartered accountants who were pioneers at that time, we realized very early the responsibilities upon us because we're role models to so many people. And now we can say we've got so many Black chartered accountants everywhere because of the work that we did in the beginning through ABASA and organizations like that. But then I want you to go back to you admitted as a partner. You personally still have to navigate this space where Black people are still viewed with suspicion. Are you going to succeed? And the challenges that Black people were facing who were in leadership at that time. Just share with us, how did you navigate that space as a partner now?
Well, firstly, particularly in an environment like Ernst & Young, it's a professional firm. You had to be very, very good at what you did. There had to be no question about your ability to deliver very good audits and give professional opinions. So I invested in making sure that I did that. And you might actually remember, Nonkulego, that in most of these big firms, what used to happen, Black people were relegated to auditing Black municipalities. And I actually, one of the first things that I did, I refused to do that. I said, I am actually going to lead big audits.
Yes.
And one of my biggest account was actually the Coca-Cola company, which globally was our biggest, one of our biggest accounts. I led that. I refused to go to so-called Black municipalities, not because they did not need ours, but it was not, you're not sent there to help your own people. You were sent there because nobody wanted
to go there.
To go there, and Black people were not given the big jobs. I remember being put on the Transnet audit because Transnet in South Africa was our biggest, but I had a task that I didn't understand. I walked out of it and said, I'm actually better than this. I'm actually going to have audits that I ran. So I had to put my foot down, but I was able to put my foot down because I knew I could deliver. I always knew that when it came to being technical, there were very few partners in the firm right across the race and color bar that were as good. But I had to invest in myself. When I ran the Coca-Cola account, it actually became so clear that we could actually do a lot. That's actually why I went out and did my HDIP tax law. And I mean, we grew that account phenomenally. But you had to really assert yourself, deliver, so that when you spoke, there was nobody that could question your authenticity. And as a result, I found myself, within 2 years of being a partner, I actually ended up on the national executive of the firm. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but it was backed by solid delivery. But at the same time also, because you're carrying the aspirations of these people, of these younger black people, you had to make sure that in your teams, I always made sure that I had black people. There was not a single one of my audits that I did not have black people.
So, Peter, I mean, people struggle to assert themselves because when they try to assert themselves, they're labeled, difficult blacks and so on. Just advise my listeners, how did you do that in an authentic way where you were taken seriously? Of course, I mean, you were already gifted and they knew you were gifted, which is why they promoted you to be a partner. But still, even when that happens, people find it difficult asserting themselves. How did you do it in such a way that you were received and taken seriously and not labeled as a difficult black?
Well, again, in an environment like, let's say, Ensendeng, and I'll move to Old Mutual because the same applied. Firstly, you've got to know what you have to do and deliver on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a firm like Ernst & Young, if you delivered good audits, brought in the fees, they started respecting you. So the first thing is you've got to make sure that when you're given the position, one, take the position.
Yes.
But deliver on it. And then you can actually pull other people. But if your success is actually dependent on handouts from people, you're never going to get anywhere. It must actually be a totally solid foundation that you yourself must actually build. You can't, your success, people can help, but it must essentially be dependent on you so that you can actually tell people that I'm out of here. And you know that you need to first have confidence in yourself. You cannot empower other people if you don't have confidence in yourself. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to hold yourself accountable. And then you can actually tell other people, I'm delivering. I knew that I was better than quite a lot of the partners in the firm.
You knew that. I mean, you knew that about yourself.
Yeah.
So you knew your capabilities and you were confident in yourself. Or maybe that is the problem then, that people are not sure. They're expecting other people to validate them, and then they'll know that they are good. But you knew that you were good.
Yes, and it's an important thing for us black people. Actually, it sounds selfish, but the first thing that we've got to learn is to love ourselves first. Because if I can't expect people to love me if I don't love myself, I just can't. If I'm not confident in myself, why must other people be confident in me? Therefore, I needed to know that the tasks that were at hand, I could deliver. I could not lie to myself. And I did not, much as yes, I was voted into the partnership. Yes, the votes of my partners was actually quite important. I would still like to think that they voted me into it because they knew I could deliver. And it's a very important thing. It's not just a handout. And I'll tell you this, Nonkolego, the black people that I worked with, almost all of them delivered.
Wow.
Almost all of them. I really, really mean it. I've said on many platforms that this country is not bankrupt of good black and African people to deliver. And I go back to say, I make this call, and you and I know how difficult it was. Forget whether you're black or white, but particularly for black people to pass the board exam. And you've got these two youngsters saying, don't worry, it's in hand. And you think, wow, the results come out.
And they've passed.
Yes. And then you start realizing that this notion that you are different to others, it's
not true.
It's not true. And we must never believe that narrative. We must believe the narrative that says there are a lot of us that are very good. Because there are a lot of us. It is a fact that there are a lot of us that are very good in this country.
You are really touching a sore point for me. And I wanted to spend time in this later, but now that we're discussing it, maybe let's go there. Because I look at us as Black people, and we must admit that we've come a long way, right? There's so many Black people who are successful, who are doing a great job. I mean, this week I was speaking at Mpumalanga University, and there's a Black woman there who started that university from scratch, and today is a fully fledged university that is successful, buildings everywhere, over 10,000 students, everything going well, people respecting this Black woman, even men who are working with her. And I came back thinking, this thing is not true that we're not capable, right? So, but when you look at us, when you look at the majority, even those people who are in corporate, why they always ask me this question, how did you do it in such a way that we are not, called names? Because there's still this conditioning of the past that people don't believe in themselves. For me, it's like, we need to deal with this conditioning, because if we don't deal with it, we're never going to see large numbers of Black people contributing effectively in our economy and our country. And to look at where the country is now, we need those Black leaders to rise up. Yeah. So what advice can you, when you look at the situation, I mean, where you are, you've made I know, I've worked with you all, for many years. I know how you've empowered Black people, and you are saying that ability for themselves to know that they are good, like those two young men, is already there. So how can we wake Black people up to realize that they can do these things? They are not what they are told that they are.
Well, that's actually where maybe us as Black leaders come in. We can't keep complaining. We've got to say, I've been given this task. I'm actually going to raise those leaders and raise them to be true leaders. One of the things in my first stint at Entrepreneurship, hopefully we'll get to my second stint, that I used to like, I had all these young Black people that I gave very, very big jobs. And we used to be clear on roles and responsibilities. Firstly, I accepted that they were very good, because if I could not accept that they were very good, it meant I had to doubt even myself.
Yes.
So I knew that Black people could do it. I'd done it. I accepted that these people could do it. Some of them, in their areas, they were better than me. So when I gave them some of these jobs, I remember, and two people come into mind, Ben Kotisan and Tabodot. I'm their boss. So we'll argue about decisions. They'll say, yeah, Peter, let's actually just be clear. You are the boss. I just want to get your ideas. I'm going to make the decision. It's not true that's going to make the decision.
Yes.
But that was actually part of what I had to do, to say, when I'm giving them responsibility, I'm also giving them the decision making. I could not say they're the bosses and they knew. They'll say, no, you make these decisions. This decision is ours. Even if it is wrong, I might actually come and ask you to understand, but the decision is mine. And it actually took a lot to say, geez, it actually was fascinating. You saying, I don't necessarily agree with this. And this guy is telling me that it is his decision. But bloody hell, what are you going to do about it? That's actually what empowering other people is. Let them, because you can't actually think that you know all the answers.
Yes.
You can't.
As a leader.
As a leader. And because you can't do everything. And accept that they know better. Accept that they might have different experiences. And accept that they're going to do better than you. So I learned not to compete with my subordinates.
Wow.
I learned that, fun enough, I also learned not to compete with my boss.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you thought you knew better, it was actually like that. But more importantly, with the people below you, never ever compete with them. Your job is actually to push them up. I mean, just after we got all, in my second stint, just after we got all mutual back into South Africa, when I took my December holiday, I said, I'm going on holiday. I will not make decisions when I'm on holiday.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to Karabo saying, Karabo, I'm appointing you to act in my place. And I jokingly said, well, I meant it. You make any decisions, like I'll make them. The only decision that I could never make is to fire myself. So please don't fire me whilst I'm out. But I really meant it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you empower these people. You don't watch over their shoulders. And the interesting thing that I learned over time was that give people that responsibility, respect them. They in turn will respect you. When they come to seek counsel, they're coming to seek counsel, not coming to make decisions. Like I'm saying, they'll tell me that, no, I'm asking for opinion. I'm not asking you to make a decision because I'll make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so take that, respect them, nurture them, but give them autonomy and give them guidance. Yes, I mean, like all of us, once in a while we need guidance, but we don't need people to be watching over our shoulders.
And babysitting us. I mean, what you've said is actually powerful because leaders, fail to appreciate what you appreciated very early, that you are not in competition with anybody and you don't know everything, because I think this is where leaders miss it. They feel intimidated by those who are smarter than them in certain areas. So it's this whole issue of self-awareness, knowing, confident in yourself, but knowing that you don't know everything and you need those around you to actually know those things that you don't need.
Yeah.
You don't know, because for you to succeed, you need to surround yourself with people who can complement you where you know that you fall short. I mean, yeah, this is very powerful, Peter. So let's go to you leave Ernst & Young and you go to Old Mutual. Yes. What was that like? This is now a different environment altogether.
Well, I laugh because Old Mutual taught me other sides. But before I look at some of the challenging things, but which later I could make light of, Old Mutual, at that stage, I was also fortunate, just like I'd been the first black partner at Ernst & Young. There'd never been any black person at that level when I joined Old Mutual. And one of the first things that I said, we really needed to transform Old Mutual. I joined Old Mutual in 1997 and was heading a small division in employee benefits. Like I said, there were not that many black people. We started bringing in a lot of black people into what was then the employee benefits division. I take people like Thabo Dloti. Thabo wanted to go overseas. I think it was to an actuarial firm, Bacon and Woodrow. And I arranged that. I facilitated that he goes. I always say when he came back, he came to my office. I remember he was putting on a pair of jeans. I'm sure he had his resignation letter in one of his back pockets. So he says to me, Peter, I'm back. What am I going to do? I looked at him and said, Thabo, I want you to head up our smooth bonus portfolio. It was a 70 billion rand portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
That meant I got him to jump 3 grades.
Wow.
And I always say to Thabo, he never pulled out that resignation letter. I don't think he even believed it. But I knew that all he needed was for me to kind of cover. Technically, he understood it and knew better than me. I did not have to worry. There were certain things, maybe dealing with clients, that I might have been slightly better than him. So it was actually those things. We brought people like Omon Hlahlahla, that ended up being the CEO of AXA. She used to work in one of my divisions.
Oh, wow.
At Old Mutual, because we were comfortable that this country was not bankrupt of very good black people. When we were promoting Thabo, I remember saying to Thabo, you're not getting your promotion unless you find another competent black person that will do your job. That's actually how we got somebody like Ben Kodisang to take over from Thabo. But it was actually deliberate. And if you go actually to our adverts at All Mutual Employee Benefits, around about 1997, 1998, our adverts used to read like this. We're looking for black African. So
Wow.
we were actually that deliberate because we believed in it. The world could see. I still remember in some forum of employment equity being taken to task that in employee benefits, there is a problem. And I said, what's the problem? And they said, we're focusing on African people. I said, yes, because South Africans are the most oppressed in this country. We need to have a deliberate program to do that. And I'm glad that in 2005, when I left, more than 50% of the profits of All Mutual were run by black African South Africans.
Wow. Wow.
And that's just a statement of fact. In my second time at All Mutual, I started, I think, at All Mutual it might have been a Wednesday or Thursday, it was the 1st of June. I met the then EXCO the first time on the following Monday. But I'd actually spoken to all the business unit heads. One of the first things that I did, I brought in 3 black people onto EXCO that very day. I brought in Karabo Murule, I brought in Clarence Netengwe, I brought in Clement Chinaga. On that day, because I said that we needed to shift the power of this organization to people that ran the businesses. And those people were black African people. I had already spoken to somebody that both of us know very well. Before I'd started, I'd spoken to Ugcina and said, Ugcina, I'm taking this role. I want you to come and head the asset management business.
Wow.
At All Mutual. So it was actually, we've got to have the confidence in our own people. Yes, some of them might actually say as a difficult leader, but all of them will tell you that I was supportive. I never demanded lighter standards from them. Never, ever. But the beautiful thing, they all rose to the challenge. All of them rose to the challenge. So yeah, the lighter thing I was going to say, but it also talks to the mindset. So at All Mutual at the time, we had a very big parking garage and only general managers and the select divisional managers parked in the building. So for you to park in the building, you actually had to have a remote control that opened the gate to the main building. And we're not allowed. The rules were you couldn't bring children into the office. People at a certain level had to sign that in. So the one day, I fetched my son from school, drove in, go up. As I'm going up to my office, a security guard comes running through. So I didn't, because I parked at the back, I didn't have to go through the security guards. He says, excuse me, sir, children are not allowed in. I said, yes, I know they've got to be signed, but I'm allowed to sign him in. And he says, but also, how did you come in? I said, yeah, I came in through the gate. I used my remote control. He says, "Oh, you've got your own remote control. Are you a chauffeur?"
Yeah.
I mean, I was very cross. I walked away. I promise you, less than 2 weeks later, again, I was driving through now the gate, and there was a security guard. So I opened the gate, then he says, "But I didn't open for you." I said, "But I've got my own remote control." He says, "Oh," and I had a white Mercedes Benz. And the chauffeurs drove white. So he says, "Oh, so you're a chauffeur." But it made me realize that with a mindset that black people could. I mean, I was very cross with these security guards. But when I processed it, I said, there is a belief that black people
Can only be chauffeurs here.
cannot get to management. So I started working on making sure that we celebrated having black people. We talked about it. I was also, I must say, fortunate in that at that time, somebody like Gerard van Niekerk called me aside after one of the evenings when we were having drinks. He says, "Peter, I'm just worried about transformation in this company." I said, "What do you mean? I mean, my division is the most transformed. I've got more black people." He said, "If you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. I'm now giving you the responsibility to make sure that every division has got black people." So those things, I must also say, helped. So there were some unsung heroes. I mean, he didn't have to do that, but he actually gave me carte blanche to do those things. When Roddy Sparks became MD and I was his deputy, I said to him, "Roddy, I actually want to take over our BE financing program because it was actually not working." And I remember somebody again that both you and I know very well, Jane is saying, he felt that every time people came to talk about BE deals, they were given lectures on how it was not done. I then started saying, we have the funds, there are enough people. I started going to different people to say, we've got the facilities, we are going to help you. I mean, today one of our most successful companies was Whiphold, Tomato and them. Tomato will tell you, they never came to ask that we fund them totally. I called them and said, we want to take out everybody, all the institutions, and we remain as the only institution so that we can actually give you whatever support. And that's actually how that's how they flourished. I mean, we never limited them on the funds. It's actually some of those things that when you got the power, you had to use it, but it also helped that the people that allowed me to do those things.
So, Peter, I always ask myself, we always talk about the reason why black people are not going into business or doing bigger things in business is because of, financial constraints. We always complain about this. And I ask myself, but we've got so many black people who are leading in these institutions, banks, insurance companies, and so on. Why are we still talking about this? Because when white people are in leadership positions, they empower other white people. When Indians are in leadership positions, they empower other Indians. So we are saying even that is not. It shouldn't be a problem if people had confidence in themselves and took the responsibility to use the power that they have. So just talk to me about that. How can we solve this problem of these black people who are in leadership positions, but they still can't, contribute towards transformation?
Well, firstly, we need to get over the politics and the business of the stomach. We've got to know who we are. I've got to accept if I'm in a position like Old Mutual, like the PIC, where I allocate capital, that those people are going to be way more successful than me financially. You've got to accept that and be comfortable with it. You can't actually refuse to finance them because they're going to be better than you. No, the world does.
Wow.
The world does not work like that. You've got to say, I'm very happy, I'm comfortable in my skin. If I'm not, the problem is a lot of us are not comfortable in our skins. That's actually why you've got these politicians, these business people that think when they help you, they must get something. I will tell you, there are a lot of businesses. I mentioned Whipple. Not once can anybody that I ever empowered ever say, I asked even for a cent, even when they made way more money than me. Never, ever did. But you need to be comfortable in your role and actually say, I have got a much bigger purpose. I've got to do those things. I'm happy in my job. I mean, let's take somebody like President Mbeki.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually the biggest job you could have in this country.
Yes.
I get a sense that he was comfortable in his job. He never kept on saying, do this and I'll get a cut and I'll get a cut. He could have done that.
Mm-hmm.
But he was comfortable that I'm leading this. He changes the legislation, empowers a whole lot of people. It was not about him.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to think like that empowering other people is because I'm fortunate to be given that position and I do that. It's not about me making money. And it's also, but you see, when you do that, what then tends to happen? You end up giving people that are not worth it because you can make these demands on them. You need to look for strong people that can also tell you to get lost.
Yes, yes.
And we really, unfortunately, the first thing, it goes back to loving yourself and believing yourself. And then when I meet Nonkulego, I know that Nonkulego can do it. I know that Nonkulego is capable. I know that I'm not going to worry about write-offs because your success becomes my success. Mm-hmm. And those things must actually be symbiotic. And we don't seem, it's sad that I don't know why. I really don't understand it because for me it is sad. Having walked this journey, I just found it quite easy.
Yeah, we need to go back to those values because, I mean, we were entrepreneurs who were dreaming to build big accounting firms. And if we didn't have people like you who were so focused on developing others, and I'm always, so grateful that when we're building Sizwe Nsaloba Gobodo, for instance, not a single Black leader who was part of that empowering ever asked us for anything, and the only thing we were asked to do was don't mess up. That's what we were asked to do, that you can't afford to mess up. And we knew that if we mess up, we would be letting you down because the naysayers would say, look, this is what Black people do when they are empowered, they mess up. So, and you are right. The reason now why we're not seeing progress, we have a nation of people who want to take shortcuts in life is because we started empowering people who are not capable, who when they were given those opportunities, people knew that they were not capable, but they were going to have a cut in these things. So we're never going to see Africa develop because that's been the mentality from the rest of the continent. It's here in South Africa now. So we're never going to see this development of Africans who are able to take over and run their own economies as long as we have this mentality. Again, Peter is going to take leadership, Yes. The foundation was built by, strong leaders. In fact, as we're, reflecting on the passing of Tito Mboweni, because he was just such an example of those leaders. I mean, who didn't think about themselves, who who empowered people without expecting to get anything from that example of leaders, as you were quoting the former president Thabo Mbeki. So when Thabo Mbeki was removed, there was just a layer of all of these leaders who had values, who had been raised by others, who were capable leaders, and they left such a void that all of these now leaders who have no values, who are corrupt, came in, and we now have the society that we're facing today. I just worry, how are we going to turn the corner from where we are today? What can we do, Peter? What can we do?
Well, it's interesting. In preparing for this, I was actually beginning to reflect and re-reflect. We need to get those selfless leaders back in, and there's got to be a deliberate program. It's not going to happen of its own. Before I get to the political side, you and I first met through ABASA. You've got to say, is an organization like ABASA agitating for pushing black CFOs? Today, we've got a lot of qualified black people as chartered accountants. How come? I suspect if you look at the JSE, we might still have more white and more Indian CFOs than African CFOs. Why? Why are entities like ABASA quiet? Why are entities like BMF quiet? Those entities, call them NGOs or advocacy groups, need to be strengthened. Today, just like I think on the political side, I think we're at our weakest. And I think on those advocacy groups, they're quiet. You remember the profession, small as we were, could not do a whole lot of things without ABASA.
Yes.
We are the ones that actually came up with saying, let's have a minimum of 30% black people. We're the ones that talked about Project 2000. Where are our people? Why are those people not talking to the JSE? I'm not going to mention the company, but early this week somebody says to me, "You won't believe this. The board has just decided to extend the tenure of the CFO for another 3 years. I don't care how good he is, but it's a company I know with actually plans to have a black CFO by now. Nobody ever followed up on it. The board never followed up on it. The CEO didn't follow up on it. And now they've got to extend the tenure. It's not about the person, but it's the concept that we've got these opportunities to build for black people to come in. We don't do those things. Why? We don't have the right leaders. We don't have the right institutions. And we've got to go back and actually re-examine an organization that we love, like ABASA, to say, what exactly are you doing? We've got to re-examine organizations like BMF and say, what are they doing? You might not necessarily always agree with somebody like Mzwanele Manyichimanya, but you'll know that when they ran BMF, when Oputlo ran BMF, there were serious advocacy groups. And we need to get back to those levels. So all of those things, it's possibly the time has come for us to say, we are unemployed, we possibly don't need anything from this. Let's actually make sure that those advocacy groups are strong, because this job is actually far from being done. I was looking at the latest statistics. I think the latest statistics suggest that there is about 82% African people in this country. You've got to sit and say, the JSE must actually have 82%, must be led by Africans. 82%. That's actually the mindset.
Yes.
That's actually the mindset that you've got to have. And it also starts at the political level. Our politicians don't talk about it. So it's a rethink, Nonkulego, of the whole thing. And it will take people that believe in our people to do those things.
So we have to think about all the young people who are worried about the future. The future is going, technology is taking over, AI is taking over. And I look at Asian countries, how they are positioning themselves to lead in this technology space, AI space. And I look at Africa, and I was excited when you introduced yourself and you said, you are working on a business in that space. Because, I say to myself, how long is it going to be that we're always lagging behind everyone else? This is a new space for everyone. Why can't we jump in as Africans and say, this is one area where we're also going to be leading? Young people are worried about the future. They're worried about, jobs that they already have being taken over by technology and AI. What do you say to that? What can we do?
Well, it's a very interesting thing. We need, firstly, young people know this space better than us. They've got to drive towards studying and working in those spaces, position themselves very well. One of the saddest things, Nonkulego, in building this, for 2 years, we're paying developers in India. We're not paying developers
in South Africa.
Not, and of course, not the rest of the continent. And we've got to really, again, start making sure that just like we used to go out, try and channel people into the accounting environment, we've got to start talking about some of these things. We've got to give them the jobs. And it also goes back to some of us that are able to create these opportunities. So it goes back to those people that are in business leadership positions to say, we are going to make sure that these young Black people get something. But also, as we bring in the young Black people, all of us need to know that there is a give and take, that we are going to invest in you, invest in yourself. And at times investing in yourself is saying, I'm not going to think that I'm the chief information officer on day one. I'm actually going to learn, but I've got to learn at a very fast pace. But those of us that are responsible also then make sure that these people are learning at a very, very fast pace so that they come in and they get out and they actually come out stronger. We need not fear. In fact, the current human capital head of All Mutual will tell you this. I said, we're the biggest in financial services. We've got to accept that we're going to train more people, and we've got to accept that more people are going to leave us. So I started having this mindset that we're the biggest, we're going to train for the industry. This thing of actually thinking that if I train people, I don't want them to leave. Train them and actually encourage them to leave. You actually have to be that, you've got to be that comfortable that you've got, and so that comfort and the belief in yourself that even if they leave, I'm capable of training more of them. I'm capable of producing even better because I'm training them. I'm also able to keep the best.
Yes.
It's actually those things. So investing in our own is actually a thing that we need. I really, really hate it when I hear politicians, I hear business leaders lamenting that there is nothing, that Africa is being left behind. I'm saying, you are in a leadership position. Tell us what you're going to do. I mean, we sat one time at the F&B Training Center. This would have been about 2001, 2002. And we're all senior black people. And people were complaining. I said, guys, I'm not complaining because I can tell you what I'm doing at All Mutual. I've been given the response. Take it and run with it. Let's stop complaining. Let's do something. And that's actually what we really need to do. And say, none of us is going to complain, but we've got to stand up and show what we've done. We need to bring all these top black people and say, account to us.
Yes, account to us. Yes.
What you've done. All these black boards.
Yes.
Tell us.
What
Why?
have you done?
Yes. And at times ask very direct questions. Why don't you have a black CEO? Why don't you have a black CFO? You see some big banks today, they're struggling to have a black leaders. But our two most successful banks in this country are run by black people. So how then do you explain smaller banks saying that they can't find black people? It's rubbish. and then you look at those banks, who leads their boards? It's black people.
Yeah.
So we have, unfortunately, we only have ourselves to blame.
I agree. I totally agree. As we close, Peter, I mean, you've been a leader, you've had a sterling career, you've contributed you've raised black leaders. I know, I always say, you have to name them. You've been naming them here. You can't say, no, I raise people. Who are they? You've empowered companies. You are able to name them. Because if when they say, yeah, there's black empowerment or BE, we support BE, you've got to name them. I ask them, in the boards where I sit, you have to tell me the name of those that you've empowered. You can't say can't give me statistics. Give me a list of those that you have empowered. So you've seen how challenging leadership can be. Can you just share with us? We don't want this whole thing of when black people are in leadership positions, there are always stories and challenges. What advice can you give us to ensure that we put people in positions and they succeed?
Well, let me, in preparing for this, one of the things that we're going to talk about was the challenge around black women. And I'll use the example of All Mutual. When I went back, I was very serious. I mean, when I started, I said, I'm surprised that at this age I'm called to run All Mutual. There should be many young black people that are capable of running it. But I was clear on the succession plan. So our board was majority black. And I was actually quite clear that if we're going to be successful, if I served my term, somebody like Karabo Morole, a black African, South African, was capable of running this. And I mentioned it to the board, which was made up of majority black people. Firstly, I'm talking about 4 or 5 years from now. Let's actually say you don't believe it. We should actually be saying, how do we get here? But you can't think like that as the board. You just can't. Black women on that board making that statement, surely that can't be right. And we need to change that narrative. And actually, the sad thing is, we've got to sit and put in the people that can do and lead. Because I was actually taken aback. Let's actually say, yeah, if they say to me, we don't think she can do it today, maybe, but there is no ways you can tell me she can't do it in 2 or 3 years' time. Absolutely no ways. At the very worst, even if you didn't believe, then that's the opportunity for you to develop. So we need to say part of our roles is developing people for the future. It's otherwise it's not just going to.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
It's
by
actually
itself.
it's actually not going to happen by itself. And we need people on the boards that and in leadership that are serious about developing other people. You can't always think that you are going to advertise and get people. You've got to say, what have I done
To develop people internally.
to develop people internally? And in fact, when I was talking about this company where they're saying they've now extended the tenure, what actually said, here is a young black woman that in about 5 years should actually be contending for them, and with a plan.
Yes. No, that's the only way to do it.
And so we actually need to have a plan, identify some of these people. But inherently, the starting point is we must believe that there are just too many people that we can choose from. We must never, ever believe in this narrative that South Africa is bankrupt of good black Africans. South Africa has got a lot. I mean, we were talking earlier on about, God bless his soul, the late Tito Mboweni. We're reflecting that he was a minister of labor. He was governor of the bank. He was a minister of finance. I don't remember a single corruption scandal associated with him. So we do have people like that. The other day, I was on the How train. I said this was actually a very big thing. If you remember, that was actually a thing that was actually driven by Mbazima Shilowa. I don't remember anybody talking about a big scandal, a big financial scandal on that. So we do have people that can run this. We need to first believe that they are there, and we need to put them in those positions where we believe they are not ready. We need to develop them.
I agree. In closing, what last words do you have to say to these young people who are looking up to you and want to be like you one day? Just your closing thoughts.
Make sure that you don't get fired from a big job like Old Mutual. That's but on a more serious note, you've got to believe in yourself. There are no shortcuts in life. In the things that you have chosen, make sure you are very good. Don't work in an environment that you don't understand. In the event that you don't understand it, invest much more on the things you don't understand than on the things that you know. A lot of us are always comfortable in spending a lot of time on the things that we know very well.
Thank you so much, Peter. This has been a wonderful interview, and I know that my listeners will learn a lot from this. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Uncle Leg.